Hey, this is Chase Kabadoff with the pilot launch of MADenomics, and with me today is Sean White, and he'll be introducing the project and our topic of discussion today.
Hello, as Chase introduced me, I am Sean White. Now, most people, me, Chase, let's say the entirety of the population, is generally frustrated at politics, so rather than just sitting complaining around, we've decided that the best path is to get a feel for the majority opinions, introduce some education about the concept of ideas, and so we're going to take the specific look at economics and politics in certain world cases and states. Since we want to talk about economics and politics, we think we should start with how money is defined, because generally how people are, they don't really understand the full functionalities of money. They just see it as, I either have money or I don't. If I don't have enough money, there's a problem, which is fine. You don't need to know about a system if a system is working. But it's very clear that the system we have isn't working. So today we're going to be talking about what money is. Now currently, every country in the world is using something called the fiat currency. The fiat currency is the defined form of the banknotes that are issued to you by the government. Now we are no longer using the gold standard, which was used in the United States up until 1971, and in Canada we stopped using it in 1933. So we are going to reference a lot of North American politics, as me and Chase are both Canadian citizens. That being said, I am currently in Europe, and so we are going to try to take a very global perspective on this. The fiat currency is a legal tender issued by the United States, Canadian, European Union, or whatever local government you have.
The fiat currency is government regulated, and so without the backing of the specific government, whether it be Canadian, whether it be European, American, Australian, it doesn't matter. If the government has no backing behind the currency, then it actually has no value, because unlike the gold standard where your money value is based on a quantity of gold, this specific currency, the fiat currency, is completely backed by your government, and so if they say it's worthless, then it becomes worthless.
So you are buying cars with the power of imagination.
Which is fantastic, right? Like, we could also, switch over to a marijuana standard in BC. Like, who needs gold when you can just sell weed? That's the kind of the idea behind it. The more quantity we have.
Just don't use the potato standard, because it was terrible for Ireland.
And so, yeah, if the fiat currency has no backing from the government, and we have no other resource to compare it to, then it's basically worthless. And you have this idea of not uselessness, but worthlessness around it.
So, just because it is not backed by gold, as the gold standard was, and we'll probably do an episode on that just to explain the differences and why we no longer use that. Though it doesn't have a backing and it could be seen as an imaginary currency, it still inherently has value. Now, this should not be strange, because if you look at intellectual property or art, it is a concept that is created but has value based on the desire and quantity that exists. Now, the quantity is one of the key points, which brings to the central banks, or as it's called in the United States, the Federal Reserve's purpose. And they regulate the amount of currency that exists within the system. This is also why, on a side note, the defacing of currency is illegal. Nobody cares if you destroy your own money, It's not a good decision. But so much money is lost every year. Just people drop money, it happens, money can get destroyed through natural causes. The Federal Reserve has to make estimates about that to know the amount of currency. The second thing that it covers, which is something that most people don't like, but it does have a reason in it, is interest. Though they can't control it, and it would be naive to believe such a thing. They wish they could, and if they could, it would be good for us. But they try to curb it so that we can know how the economic system is going. It's basically a monitor to say something's going wrong, or to say things are going well. It's a database for exchanging currencies. So that brings us to what we would call money as the best form of a liquid asset, and Chase is going to kind of lead you on the importance of that.
The fiat currency is the most liquid asset we have, and by that I mean the easiest to exchange for goods and services. And so if I was to hand you a $5 bill for 5 loaves of bread, it's just really quick that way, rather than having to trade you a cow and then dissect it into portions and then divide those portions into the equivalent exchange for those 5 loaves of bread.
And for those who are saying to go back to the barter system, I don't want to deal with livestock. I don't. It's just terrible, and animals shit.
And I personally wouldn't want that. It just seems like a huge inconvenience of all this extra effort I have to put into the exchange. And so with liquid assets, it's just ease, basically. Not only that, but the fiat currency allows us to have the most convenient exchange of our time. So we spend that time working, and then we're given an equivalent back, our fiat currency, and then we're free to do whatever we want with that value of time that we put effort into. So that leads to an important question around fiat currency. If it's the most convenient exchange of our time, and it's our most liquid asset, the easiest way to exchange for goods and services, then why are people afraid of it? What don't people like about it? Sean?
Well, one of the major of the two issues is either that it's not backed by the gold standard, which to some people find it's necessarily an imaginary source. And the second issue is fears of currency systems in general. So let's go back to the fact that it is an imaginary basis. The value of anything is based on its desire. And as long as the government system is backing it up, the fiat currency has value. For a government to entirely abandon the currency system would lose the entire value of the country. It would essentially need to be the removal of a country and also all the goods and services you've purchased. So that's why some people do hoard products. So whenever they gain money, they try to find something that's static in value. Gold for a long period of time was considered a very stable source because it continued to generate income at a relatively similar rate, and it was desired. But at the same point in time, now that we live in an age of instant communication, the value of an economy needs to be able to change instantly, and this is one of the big reasons where the gold standard does have some issues. But going back into the fear, so for your money to intrinsically lose its value, your government has to be completely destabilized. If you are in a situation where the fiat currency has failed you, many things have failed you first and are a much bigger issue. But if currency is still just an exchange for a work or an item that's traded, a country still has all the commodities that exist in the country and would still have the entire workforce that exists in the country. So the values are still there. If the system needs to be changed, then we need to go about how this system could be run. What could we do? But there's no point in time where everything just disappears. It's an unrealistic or an unfounded fear, but one that we need to understand, because neither of us are saying that the fiat currency is the best system that could exist, and we're not saying that it's impossible or it's this perfect system. We want to bring a dialogue that discusses the flaws, but also discusses the benefits, so that we see what we know that works, what we want from an economic system that provides us the opportunities and the freedoms that we feel should be possible. And the key word is possible. We can't have an unrealistic expectation of a system, but what should be possible under the understanding of how it works and where we want to be. So that's going to lead us into discussion, and this is how we're going to try to end the episodes, is a liberal, not in the political sense, but just a lighthearted discussion to bring up some points that interest us, to start to engage everyone else, because that is the purpose of this. We want to increase the interest in political discussions because it governs us. Government governs us. It is the rules that apply to our life. So if we don't want to feel part of it, it means that we need to feel secure enough in how this system works. But we have some errors, and let's take a look at our issues or our opinions on this. So Chase, what would you like to say about fiat currency to start off?
I personally am fond of the fiat currency because it is the most liquid of our assets. It just makes things so convenient for trade. You can convert one fiat currency to another currency, and so I see the benefit in that, just as far as moving around the globe.
Yeah, what a surprise that the person studying business and pro-capitalist likes the fiat currency system. Wow, inspirational.
Yeah, I suppose, right. But taking aside, like, I'd prefer then rather than having like a gold standard or a marijuana standard. It's just like it's easy because it's already in place, and like, we don't have to do a lot of work around it.
Well, what you were discussing earlier then, you were saying about how it has a relation between time, the work done and the value that that work has. Is the fiat currency then accommodating the value of work?
Not so much the work that we do, it's almost the individual's worth on how much they're contributing. So, like, if you're a doctor, you're getting paid more for your time because the skills you have are more valuable than, say, you're a cashier. The people might have the same value, but the skills that they're performing are worth more when you come down to a value of their time.
Do you honestly believe that the current fiat system is adequately representing the value of work? Are people within reason getting the right amount of money for the work they're doing, and is it to a realistic degree, though it is abused, not abused unrealistically or to a point that it's a problem?
I would argue because of variables such as inflation and interest. Interest would be one problem that I would have with the current system as far as fiat currency goes, because making money off of money just doesn't seem to be morally right. For sure, people love it. Capitalists just eat it up.
Oh, hail the capitalist gods.
Exactly, and so it just seems wrong morally that you're making money off money, especially when people don't have that money in the first place. And so if you look at it an aspect of time, you are taking time away from people that they already don't have.
I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that point as for a moral perspective, but in the concept of using money to make money for having more money, that the purpose of money is supposed to have in society, it is a failure of the system. And I don't think that would be hard to argue. Now, I do want to say I'm not saying I have an issue with wealth. In the most part, a right-wing person that ultimately believes in the free market, but the free market is about the best product succeeding. So a wealthy person should be wealthy for producing a product that is desirable to its cost as well as the volume that it is produced. When you are making money just to make money, it's nothing to do with providing a product that we want. It is more abusing a system in the most efficient way possible, which I'll admit it is a skill that people have, and to a degree, the accomplishments of some of these people, it's bravo, I am impressed. And all systems can be abused. But the point of governing a system of governance is to remove the abuse. That is the point. We can have economic systems without a form of government. Economic systems naturally place themselves. The point of the government is to regulate within reason. And that's the key point that we need to keep bringing up through these conversations and the other conversations. We can all make imaginary things that work. We can all complain and do nothing. But within reason, what can we do? What can we desire? And what can be changed? We don't want to go too long. We want some feedback to see what people want. So, Chase, what are some of the things you want to see us discuss in the next few episodes, or also see the discussion about it on the video comment section?
I think in the future for shows we could probably do GDP. I think it'd be a good idea to understand what that means and how we come to those numbers that we do. Because we touched on inflation today, I believe inflation would be a good one to look at. Interest, definitely interest, and continuing on the idea of making money from money. I think that's would be beneficial for the viewers, and I think it could open up a lot of discussion in the future.
I agree with those topics. The only thing I would like to add before I do a quick close-off is when any system has needless complexity, it is never good for the consumer. In the end, what we want is what's best for the consumer. We need to simplify things. We need to lower the boundary of education.
Iron Chef of the world, Sean White, over here trying to simmer the sauce. Ladies and gentlemen.
Just shut up. We need to have a realistic boundary of entry. It is fine to have people unable to do heart surgery because we have specialists and we can do that. But it's unable to have a system of democracy in which the majority cannot understand. Because then you cannot have a democracy that accurately represents the needs or the demands of the people. So on that agitated point, I just want to say We do have a Twitter that's set up. If you want to Twitter us directly, it's at MADenomics, capital M, capital A, capital D, Anomics. And to trend the conversation for all those social stuff to get attention, it's just hashtag capital M, capital A, capital D, ENOMICS. Or you can send us a more direct email at cs.mutuallyassureddiscussion@gmail.com. Tag us out.
Alright, thanks for listening today, and we'll hopefully see you guys in the future.
Bye.